Hey friends, welcome to a new video here on the LNM channel. Today we're going to be looking at my Obsidian changes from September. Originally, I was not going to do this video. I was going to skip it this month, but after having some pretty good conversations about the Obsidian and systems and all that on the Discord, I decided, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do it. Tomorrow, I am starting a new workshop over with the Linking Your Thinking team, and so I was going to spend some time in here anyways and move things around. So before I did all of that, I just wanted to show you what I ended up doing in September, what the Obsidian Vault looks like right now, and all the system changes that I've done in the previous month, at least that I remembered to record and will remember to talk about, because I did get a little bit lazy with the Obsidian log. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but once something is done and over with, as time passes, it just dissipates from the brain. It's why I have all of the things that I do to try and remember both analog and digital. But anyways, let's go ahead and get over to the screen share so we can look at what it is that I did in my Obsidian in September. Okay, so one of the things I tried to do was kind of zoom this in a little bit, so it is very zoomed in. I hope that that helps with you being able to see what's on the screen a little bit easier. I am going to try to remember that more and more often because it is something that I tend to forget, and I apologize. I mean, like, normally on my day-to-day, this is how it looks like. So it's pretty small, but I want to make sure that you guys can see it as best as possible. So something that I did this actually a couple days ago, so it was technically an October change, but I added the Obsidian log for the month in the monthly note. So before I had the Obsidian log, I do have it still, the Obsidian change log. And this has all of the logs. And right now I have it grouped by month, but sometimes it can get a little tedious to look at this way. And with these videos specifically, I just want to talk to you about what happened inside the month. So I figured that this would be a kind of good way to go about that. It is not in order. I still haven't quite figured out how to do it in order with the data view query. If you guys want to look at what the data view query looks like, again, it's a little bit crazy. Don't ask me to explain it. It's a lot of trial and error and a lot of looking up forums and trying to figure it out and experimenting with different things, but this is what it looks like. I can't seem to figure out the sort function in data views. I feel like I need to read a little bit more and figure it out, but I feel like sorting is something that still to this day eludes me. So there's that, but I did want to show you the query just in case you guys are interested in doing something similar. Um, and yeah, once I'm able to explain it, I will. In September, I spent a lot of time working through the light core curriculum. So linking your thinking, I mentioned that in the intro. Right now it's light 16 and it starts tomorrow as I'm recording this. I'm recording this on October 13th. So before the main kind of like live curriculum or live workshop happened, I wanted to take the core curriculum and kind of work through it and see all the changes that I could make. So September really was a really big systems month, and I created a lot of map of contents. As you can see, I have 48 notes in my inbox right now that I still haven't processed, and I considered processing them today before tomorrow the course workshop situation starts, but ultimately I decided to just let it be. So we are gonna start this without having cleaned up my inbox. But yeah, I worked on a lot of kind of like best practices and stuff like that. I'll show you guys in a second when we get to here. One of the major things is I changed the theme. So this theme is different. I don't think that this is the theme that I had last time. I believe it is still the primary theme. Yeah, it's the primary theme. I'll show you which one it is here in a second. So if we go into appearances and we go to manage, let's just show installed. I do have quite a few installed. So it's Primary by Cecilia May. That's the one I have installed right now. I am loving it a lot. I like the buttons. I like I don't know, I just like a lot of things about it. So I have been using it. I think that right now it's been the longest theme that I've used. So very happy about that. I did do a lot of work in my kind of like notes folders. So if you remember the last couple of months, I've been working to condense the system into having less folders. And in September, I kind of expanded it again. Here, I put rename the Zettelkasten folder back to Atlas and the NIM folder back to efforts. I think I'll redo some of my tagging. Noticing where I am creating friction and where the tension is calling for a change. Change is good. Change is nothing to be ashamed of. So one of the reasons why I really enjoy creating these kind of videos, and also in my analog videos and anything to do with my creative practices, experimentation is a really big deal to me. It's a core tenet of my practices and my creative kind of like ecosystem is to allow myself to experiment. It's a way that I actively fight against the perfectionism that I experience. And so it's a way for me to keep it in check. Sometimes, though, that changes can be a little bit frustrating when I kind of like try something, make a decision to change it, and then say, actually, no, I prefer it that way. And to that frustration, I say, let it go, because every decision that you make and whatever the outcome is of that is just information that then propels you forward. So I had at one point changed Atlas to Zettelkasten and efforts to Nim. I think everything else was pretty much the same. I did go ahead and just redo that. I changed it back to Atlas. I like the concept of the Atlas. This is part of the framework for linking your thinking. I do still have this reference folder. This is something that I'm considering and putting into reference, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I do have the reference folder, and then I changed nim to efforts. Something that I don't talk about here, and it is something that I'm thinking about, is that I still experience a lot of friction when it comes to project management and Obsidian. To me, Obsidian is a reference place. I love it for referencing. I love it for developing ideas. I love it as a second brain, but I feel still some friction. I don't know how to work on it. It's just something that I'm experimenting with. I have considered possibly moving the projects to Notion, but I'm still iffy on that because I like having it all together as well. But I do experience some friction when it comes to like the productivity side of things in terms of project management. Not so much productivity on like to-do lists and task management, because that is something that I do analog, but more so on the side of like, okay, I have, these areas that I wanted to work on, these projects that are active and ideas and, simmering projects and all of the works that I have already put out into the world. So I'm thinking that this kind of like efforts situation is something that I need to workshop and work through. It doesn't feel super in line, I guess, with the way that I think. And it's something that I'm still experiencing quite a bit of tension with. But I did, bring that back. I added these kind of like folders for areas, projects, and works. Basically, Atlas is from the Linking Your Thinking. Efforts is as well. Oh, ACE framework. It's Atlas, calendar, and efforts. That's what it is. ACE framework. Atlas, calendar, and efforts. I arrived. I arrived. Um, but yeah, those are one of the things I did. Added folders back. Speaking about folders, added folders back into the system under Atlas. So at one point when I was doing the Zettelkasten folder, I had put everything together. I put quotes, sources, everything together. People, I think people still was kept separate. But what I did was I created the folders back and I brought back statements and things. So I have maps, which are my main maps of content. That's another big thing that kind of going through the linking your thinking modality really helped, not just the linking your thinking, but also like writing original works, which is one I did a couple months back, and even No Making Mastery, which is the one we started with back in May. Um, it's been able Maps are not just indexes, which is what I have always considered them. And I think when you hear about maps of content, a lot of the time, because I've seen other people mention it, is that you think that you infer that they are just indexes, but really they're not just indexes. They are indexes, directories. They are tools for thinking, and for expanding and for connecting. And so I found a lot of value in kind of understanding that aspect of maps and have been kind of playing around with that a little bit. My people's folder is still the same. And then I created a quotes folder, a sources folder, a statesman folder, and a things folder. And when I mentioned earlier that I was thinking about moving reference into the Atlas, what I was thinking about was moving references into things. Um, because if you think about it, right, like in the way that I keep notes, I have my higher level notes, which would be your maps, right? And peoples to me are a form of map, but I like having them separate just because I prefer it that way. Quotes are a thing technically, but again, I like having quotes separate just because I do like collecting quotes. And so I have those separate in the same way that, people could be a map and they could be in there. Quotes could be a thing, but I want them to be separate in the same way that I like people to be separate. Sources would encompass anything that is a source note. So if I'm taking annotations on books, if I'm taking annotations on essays, movies, things like that, that would go into a source note. Statements would be really, the statements are at the core of what my ideas would be. They are personal more than anything, because a statement that is said by someone else is a quote, right? But statements are mine. So statements are essentially the core of like the atomic notes, if you will. If you have any idea of like Zettelkasten and smart notes and stuff like that, the atomic note, the main idea, that would be in statements, and everything else is technically a thing, right? So like when I think about all of my reference stuff, like fountain pens and inks, those are it's a thing note, right? Like display ideas for Lightstream is a thing. However, when I think about reference, and even though technically all of this is reference material for the most part, when I think about reference, it's more utilitarian in nature. So I don't necessarily think that I'm going to write a note um, that is super expansive and intelligent and thought provoking about these images that I got that are inspiration for my office space. I could though, right? Like I could. And that's something that my brain has been kind of like I've been trying to think about lately, is that while all of these are utilitarian in nature and they may not link in the same way to kind of like thinking notes, if you will, which is what I consider Atlas to be, they still could be jumping off points potentially, and I still like linking to them. And it's why I to avoid cluttering the graph view, I do add a tag to these. So for example, I add this kind of like gear tag, that way I can remove it from the graph. But I still like linking. Like, I don't know if there's anything in here. Like, for example, this Obsidian index is technically a utilitarian note, it's a reference note. But I do link to other notes in my system. Like, I link to Nick Milo because I have some videos of his in here connected. And when I think about Obsidian and different Obsidian content, I do think about him because he does make PKM content, yes, but he uses Obsidian. And so I have him as a cross link. But um Nick Milo is a person note, and to me, a person note lives in Atlas, which means that it's a thinking note, if you will. Now, do I necessarily think that this Obsidian index is going to burst through any amazing idea? Not necessarily. It's more utilitarian in nature. It's more of a reference for me to have certain notes. But I don't know. There's no answer, just questions. But those are kind of like the things that I'm thinking about when it comes to structure. Something that is talked about often in the light team, by the light team, and in the forum, the writing forum, is structure. Structure is earned. Um, that's why it's important, like when you're first starting out, to not get too hung up on the structure of your personal knowledge management, whether that is in Obsidian or somewhere else, because as you continue to use it more and more, you will find what naturally works and what naturally doesn't. And so that's kind of just the things that I'm thinking about as I'm thinking about how I'm using my system and how to better establish it so that it does not create points of friction throughout the creative process, right? Like, not so much on a day-to-day basis, but like through the creative process, because at the end of the day, if you're collecting data like this, why are you collecting data like this? You know, what is the purpose? Kind of thinking about that, what your purpose is, and um, using that to inform your decisions as you make them. So then here, I'm going to go back to this particular section because I feel like I'll be able to talk a lot about it. And I kind of want to touch base on the other little aspects first. But I cleaned up my templates and my properties a bit, deleted a few, renamed others. I removed, do I have that in here? Yeah, here. I removed, this kind of ties into that. I removed medium. So the mediums property is one that I had actually added in, I think, August, to replace collections. But kind of going through and kind of figuring out my best practices and how things work, I did end up bringing back collections and removing medium for now. So the collections property will be the place for how I collect certain notes. I did try removing the down property for now. I don't think I'm going to remove it altogether, but just for now, I'm going to remove the down property and I'm only going to have up and related. So I did some cleanup on that. And I have been adding, like you would have seen in that Obsidian note that I just showed you, the kind of like squiggly, I always forget what, the tilde um, note and not note, symbol and the X methodology at the top of notes. So aside from having up and related, I also at the top of notes have been adding this kind of let me go ahead and show you one for example. This kind of like tilde, right? Which is basically this would be the note, like this would be your up, for example. And then this one doesn't have it because I still have to process it, but let's see here. So here's the tilde, here's the X. X would be cross links, the tilde would be up. I hope that's what it's called, because if not, then structure is earned. Here we go. Okay. These are topics. I'm working on generating some ideas or more like pitches. I'm developing pitches because I would like to pitch for podcasts to be a podcast interview. So I was kind of going through and kind of seeing what things I could talk about on podcasts potentially. And so I added a cross link to marketing because, you know, podcasting is a form of marketing. And I linked up to LNIM. And as you can see here, I have marketing down here. I haven't done the up, which I should have. So I'm going to put LNIM there. And essentially what I think of when I think about the cross note, I would like for the most part for these cross notes to exist within the body of the note. So this is not a great example because it is a utilitarian note. However, okay, here for example. So here I have the linking your thinking MOC tagged as a cross link. But for example, connection. So an architect, a gardener, a secret third thing. I could have put a cross link up here for connection or writing or what have you, but instead I worked them into the actual note itself. So when I think about cross links, for the most part, I am thinking of how I can put that inside of the note. Um, of course, there are going to be moments where they don't work inside of the note. Like for example, here, linking your thinking MOC. Um, and that's fine. But whenever possible, if you could work across note into across link into your notes, that would be preferable. But I started using that. I've been quite enjoying it. And I'm just experimenting with it. It's just another way to kind of link notes to each other. The fact that it's at the top works really well. Oh, another thing that I did that you would have noticed is that I removed the properties from this top section here and have them just on the side. That is something that took me a long time, and it's something that I've experimented back and forth trying to do and not do. I love seeing the properties up here, but the more properties I created, like for example, these are really few, but if you go into like my annotations for books and stuff, it's a really long list of properties, and the properties are important to me because they inform other things like bases and stuff like that. So I don't want to get rid of the properties, but it clogs it up, which is why I really like, you know, having these properties. They still work, they have their function, but then just having a couple of like really standalone, basic, concise, targeted is the word, targeted links are really, really nice. I feel like I didn't explain that well, but hopefully you're getting what I'm putting down, even though I'm not quite sure what it is. I changed the one line a day out of aliases. Oh, so in my daily notes, I had been doing kind of like I was using aliases for my one line a day. And I found that the more I did that, as soon as I started typing things out during my like for autocomplete. So like, for example, if I'm writing here, like, this is a tool for like my autocomplete, it clogs the autocomplete, and that was starting to bother me a bit. So I just created a property for it. I have since decided, because I haven't been using it very often, that I was going to discontinue it. So I removed the property from the template. It still exists. I didn't delete the ones that I have created prior, but it's probably not one that I'm going to be using for the time being. Let's see. Another thing I talked last month about the simple banner plugin that I was having issues with, and a great viewer suggested to use Pixel Banner in that video in the comments, and so I did, and I love it so much. So you would have seen it already in some of these notes. So for example, it's right here. I added it to, let's see, the Haunting of Bly Manor has it. You could do the little icon as well. I haven't added the icon to most of them, but you could do the icon. You can do it differently. Like, so for example, this is a repeated one, but this one is a full screen one. Let's see, is there anywhere else that I have it? I don't think I added it to the horror because I don't like the cover for the horror. It's kind of scary. So I didn't add it to it. Let's see, is there anywhere else that I can show you? I don't think so. I think that's about it. But I have been using it in other ones. I think I might have it in some people notes, but I started using the Pixel Banner plugin and absolutely love it. I really like how easy it is to get to it. So if you go to the top of your note, there's this little flag. Mine is white, which is why you can't see it, but you can go in there and then you can decide, you know, what to add based off the attachments in your vault, or also just like a URL, which is really, really fun. But really love the Pixel Banner plugin. Let me show you where, let me show you who the creator is so that you guys can get it if you are interested in it. Pixel Banner. It's this one by Justin Parker. Love it. It does have an AI feature. I have mine turned off because I don't care for the AI, but just FYI. Love it, love it, love it. I've been enjoying it very, very much. However, and comes to the next one, because Pixel Banner, it creates a lot of properties on here. And I just talked about how my properties can be pretty extensive depending on the type of note that it is. Like, they can be pretty basic on some and pretty intense on others. Nonetheless, there are some properties that pertain to specific plugins, and they can be a nuisance to look at if you are looking for specific information in your plugins. And I was thinking, I was like, man, has anyone created a plugin that allows you to hide certain properties? And lo and behold, it exists, and I downloaded it. So it's called the Metadata Hider. I've been using it so that I can hide some properties that I don't care for seeing. When it comes to the specific ones for this Pixel Banner, because you can modify the settings based off that little icon, I don't necessarily have to do it on the plugins on the property side. Top notch. Love the fact that I could hide it. So that one is called Metadata Hider, and it is by Benetor. If you go into the options, you can see here I have all of these hidden. Amazing. You can hide them from different places too, which is really, really cool. I only wanted them hidden on this sidebar view, which is where I look at my plugins. So for the most part, those are the big changes that I did in my Obsidian. For the next bit of information, or the next bit of the video, I want to talk about this one. Have made a lot of progress on all the PKM metadata and best practices, trying to standardize my system bit by bit and spend some time thinking about changes before applying them. A little bit. So one thing I did was I created this home base, and this is my home note. I have just linked. Why is there two? I think I accidentally did this. Let's delete this. There we go. So this is an area section, and the goal is to have different areas in here that works as a taskbar. And I'll show you a taskbar. It's really, really cool. Inspired by something that I saw in the Linking Your Thinking Ideaverse Pro Vault. And then I created some maps of content that works as kicking off points, if you will. So there's this one note called I want to, which basically, if you are wanting to be in your Obsidian, but you're not 100% sure, or in your personal knowledge management, but you're not 100% sure what it is you want to do, you have an I want to note, which obviously mine does not have anything in it. I still have to work on it. But you have an I want to note that basically tells you, okay, if you're wanting to do this, do this, this, and this. And if you want to do this, and this. So for example, here, if I want to do some output, I can send a newsletter, and that links out to that, and so on and so forth. Here I have my active courses notes that I'm taking. So right now I am taking a learning HTML and CSS course. I am in the Linking Your Thinking ecosystem, and I'm doing an artist in residency program with Aaron Ware. And so I have my notes on here that kind of link out. I have like the big notes. Again, I don't know why there's two of these. I have like my really big notes that I'm often referencing. The inspiring websites map of content is one that I'm referencing all the time because if I come across a website that I'm really enjoying or inspired by, I go in and add it into here. Um, and I'm always looking at my people notes as well. So that's something that I'm always looking at. I did add the banner here to Katsushika Oi. That's another one I did, by the way. And then I was like, let's get meta. Let's get meta. This is another one. And so I go into my PKM MOC. And again, I have two of these. I don't know why there's two of them. I must have done something that duplicated this. Okay. And then the LNM Digital Swamp is the homepage for my the digital side of my Obsidian. So this is the nodes that I use as my homepage for the website. And so if you go into my PKM MOC, you can see that there's a bunch of stuff in here. So oops, let's go back. So this section here, I have a bunch of stuff under here that I still need to work on, but I basically have, this is a map of my personal knowledge management. And so I have here my personal knowledge management folders. It's a note that has the folders, a note that has the tags, and a note that has the standards and best practices. And then I have here what Atlas efforts and calendar notes are for. And then I also have these same tags down here. Why do I have them up here if I have them down here? Glad you asked. Because this is a little taskbar like a little navigational bar. It's so cool. And it links up to my PKM MOC and every single one. And so I can very easily just kind of like jump back and forth between all of these, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it is so, so cool. I love it so much. And then here I just have some, folder structure and the date that I last updated it. And then I have the tags. I am working on these specific tags. I am going to be moving away from some emoji tags. I am continuing to use some of them. Like I'm going to continue to use the calendar. I'm going to continue to use the to be consumed. I'm going to be continuing to use the gear as well. But I'm thinking that these specifically, when it comes to like the idea generating and stuff like that, I'm going to be changing back to words. But anyways, there's that. And then here I have my PKM standards and best practices, which is heavily based off of a note that is provided to you in the Ideaverse by Nick Milo. But I did go in and just start changing them. And this just goes through, the properties and basically how it is that you want to maintain your personal knowledge management. It's very, very meta. And it just gives you your own little guidelines on how to do that. And then I just have a little random note in here that is like my brainstorming. I took some notes and then proceeded to scan them and add them in here. So there's that. But basically, yeah, I just created this home note and there are a bunch of other maps that I want to create. I did do something similar I don't want to show this because I feel like, okay, here you go. So I did linking your thinking MOC, like a map for the linking your thinking stuff that links out to Nick Milo, of course. It links out to another note that I have, which are like note making prompts. And then I have this little situation here where you have the little navigation bar, and you can very easily jump from one to the other. I'm going to be doing a lot of this moving forward. I know for a fact once I'm able to kind of like work through more notes and stuff like that. I haven't been super in my notes the past couple of weeks. It's just been really, really busy, and I've been experiencing some minor creative burnout, but it is what it is. There has been some life change recently that will hopefully make it better, and so there's that. Before finishing off, I just did want to show, how many notes I touched and created in September. It was 110. And the ones that I created, I still have 26 notes that I created in September that I have not moved out of the inbox, which is absolutely fine. Let's go through them. So I have It Lasts Forever and Then It's Over. This is a source note from a book I read by Anta Markin. The Linking Your Thinking map. I created a maps note that's going to link, all the maps are going to link to that one. My PKM library. I have an annotations note. So that's something that I'm still working on is I take annotations on my Kobo and I can export them because I use Co-Reader on the Kobo these days. I can export them directly as a text file and they're here. And so then that links up into the actual book note that then has kind of like the annotations and the synopsis and stuff. That is something that I'm still workshopping. I haven't 100% decided if that's how I like it, but I'm workshopping that. Once I have a bit better grasp on how I'm going to do book notes, I will make a dedicated video for that. Let's see here. Light standards of classification, like core curriculum, PKM tags, sources, the PKM MOC, the best standard and best practices, the note structure is earned. I created a reference list for where to submit poetry and creative nonfiction. I've started building that out. As soon as I come across one of them, I will add it to this list so that I can have it. Because one of my big desires, one of my big goals for this year was to be published somewhere. I don't think I'm going to get to it by the end of the year, but I still want to make sure that I'm compiling the list so that I have it later. I did read The Har by David Sodergren. I watched The Haunting of Bly Manor. This note called The Joy of the Journey. There are people who will only be reached, or rather, who will be reached only if they are reached by you. People who have no other source for the kind of guidance you could provide. This is a quote by Tiago Forte, if I remember correctly. I did reference this quote in a recent Substack newsletter that I sent out. The topics that I want to talk about in a podcast that we already looked at. Your life is made up of days, and your days are made up of moments. If you want to shape your life, you have to shape your moments. This is another quote. I created a Zen note. An architect, a gardener, or a secret third thing. Another note that we looked at is the term media diet problematic. What do you think? Is it problematic? I have some ideas on this, and that's something that I want to delve into a little bit further. I made a note for personal knowledge management. PKM is for more people than just tech nerds. This is a statement note, right? Like, so this is a statement note. This is a thing note. Personal knowledge management is a thing. Is the term media diet problematic? This is a statement note in process. It's a question, which is not necessarily a statement, but it will get there. Eventually, I will decide that my thesis is X, that yes, media diet is problematic, or no, media diet is not problematic, and then that will become a statement note. An architect, a gardener, or a secret third thing. This seems to be a thing note. However, it could potentially become a statement note if I give it some oomph. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then process over product and work with the garage door open. I did create some maps, as we talked about, the concepts maps, the course notes map, the I want to map, my personality profiles, MOC, and then published notes. I added a person, Dadushin. Let's see, there were 3 quotes that are already living in that specific folder. How We Spend Our Days is, of course, How We Spend Our Lives by Annie Dillard. If life is just a collection of present moments and attention is what makes them real, then maybe love is the highest form of our attention. Or rather, the highest use of our attention. If you know what you're doing in the arts, then you're doing it wrong. Sources, linking your thinking is how to work a book. Let's see, in terms of things, I added ebb and flow, haiku, the 7 C's of note making, an example of a library note, concept, HSL, hue, saturation, and lightness, and curriculum design. Reference, journals I'd like to buy someday. Let's see here. In reference, I added my PKM folders. In efforts, I added how I'm using an index card system for functional planning, which is a video that is live already, in case you're interested. And I did, because I decided to take down my existing website because I'm going to be making it brand new by myself, like making a handmade website for it. I did download all of the blog posts from the WordPress site to have them, and I bumped them into my Obsidian vaults. And so now they live in here in their own little section called blog. And I created the home base, which is outside of a folder, which is why it's down here. And I do have that pinned all the way to the top so that it's very easy access. So that is what I ended up doing in my Obsidian, both systematically and notes that I created in the month of September. I hope that showing that to you and kind of talking through the process and why I did certain things is inspiring. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. If you have any suggestions, please leave them down in the comments as well. I do write down all that you guys request. Please feel free to also join the Discord. We do have a section or a channel dedicated to digital systems. So if you are into journaling, or if you're also into creativity and art and all that stuff, please feel free to check out the Discord. It is free to use. There is a section that is dedicated to patrons only, but most of the channels are available to the public if you want to join. It's a really great community of people over there. So that's always going to be linked down in the description. Otherwise, please leave a comment. Your interaction with the video makes it so that the YouTube algorithm picks it up and it can go to more people who may need it. As always, thank you, and I'll catch you in the next video.